Traditional strategies, they don't work anymore.
AI is making decisions faster than we can understand them.
Everyone's selling answers. Nobody has the truth.
Disruption isn't coming. It's already here.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit?
Outwired.
Ryan Searle with Insider Perks and Modern Campground. Was there like a weird black gap there for you at the end of that intro?
Yep.
Okay, so I had to recut it because I took out our special guest, Ari, who was here the last 2 weeks, and now it's just us again. So, and apparently I just did that in like 10 seconds and forgot to take off the black gap at the end. But all kinds of interesting things are happening today. I mentioned earlier on Fireside Chats that my CPU is taking a shit in my computer, which is like a $10,000 computer, by the way. So Intel made these CPUs that apparently over the course of months or years slowly degrade because the voltage is too high in certain areas of the chip. And then just, you know, didn't bother to announce a recall, at least not that I ever saw or got an email about or anything else. So my computer starts doing this blue screen of death thing ever more occurringly over like the holiday break. And I start like using AI to try to diagnose it. It's like, oh yeah, you have a 13th gen Intel and all of those are degrading over time. And Intel has acknowledged this and you can go RMA it and have a new one sent in. But until then, you're basically fucked. And so they're sending me a new one from the PC manufacturer, but it's not here. And then I got to take the whole computer apart, change the CPU, drain all the cooling out of it and do all that stuff. So fun times.
That'd be a fun project.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like I know how to do it. Like it's fun. I haven't done it in like 15 years. I used to build computers. Well, I used to build my computers, not like computers for people. But anyway, so fun start to 2026. It's really interesting. And it's going to be a good year though, right, Scott? We're going to have a great year.
We are. We're going to
do all kinds of really cool stuff. Like, so we're bringing back MC Hospitality Highlights, which has nothing to do with Outwired, really. Which, for those of you who don't know, we had, released these reports for, I think, 2 years running, like 2023, 2024. And through like February 2025, I think we did one. And then we were like, oh, we're a little bit too busy. AI is going crazy. We need to start Outwired up. We're going to do some other things. Like we just got to reprioritize, figure out how to do this better. So we kind of took a year off and now we're back. We're going to talk about booking windows and all kinds of stuff in a report that we'll release in the next few weeks. We have an Outwired special report coming that is going to be really interesting. We're not going to do regular reporting with Outwired in the traditional sense, I think, and we still have to flesh this out between us, right?
Yeah.
What we want to do. But I think there's a lot of room for like AI to write some one-page briefers of just what AI thinks certain topics will do, or AI about Gen Z, or AI about whatever, because that's that kind of normal, and we'll disclose how we prompted and how we got to those things. But I think it's that interesting line between AI, when prompted correctly, doesn't have an agenda or a bias. And it's just really interesting to hear the perspective on how it thinks certain situations are going to go, or it uncovers things about like Gen Z and so many other things that we've done on the show before that I think that maybe humans obviously could get to at some point, right? But maybe otherwise wouldn't have thought of that, certainly not that quickly or in that kind of manner or regard. So the first one from Outwired is going to be interesting. It's going to be about how we think, how AI thinks in combination with our brains, the economy might go for, or the camping industry might go in 2026. But we're not going to talk about that today. We'll see that when it comes out and we'll cover it on the show when it does. And then what else do we got? Like Insider Perks is going to do some reports. This is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly, Scott. Insider Perks is going to do some reports on pricing and data that we have on average daily rates and pull-through sites and different site types and date ranges and accommodations and reviews and amenities and like all kinds of really interesting stuff that I'm sure I'll like probably like annoy you about, Scott, and be like, am I fucking this up? You know? And you can give me your advice and tell me how I am, and then maybe I'll correct it, maybe I won't. But I think it's the year of data, right? Is what I'm trying to say. Like I think there's as we have studied more about what AI does and more about how you can come out ahead, both as a company like Insider Perks, a podcast like Outwired, a company like Kieran Consulting, what we have come to realize is that one of the biggest ways to differentiate yourself is to have data that no one else has. Because the AI can't regurgitate that from anybody else but you. Right?
Correct.
And so,
and that's, that's where we need to be right at this moment in time. Who knows where we'll be in a couple of years, but right now that's it. And just to add to what you were just saying, it's kind of interesting that because it's the first of the year, people are talking about new topic, new things, and just this week, and it's only what's today, Wednesday?
Is it Wednesday? I don't even know.
Twice this week from people who said, we have a problem. There's too much shitty data out there.
Wait, were they talking about my data in context?
No, not at all. Not at all.
We're just making sure. I mean, I do have some shitty data.
No. It was
not like all of it that we're talking about now, but like there is shitty data, right?
No, and part of that is because, I'll just say it. It's like there are a lot of people that are just putting out stuff as a marketing tool. Mm-hmm. And if your motivation is to have your data and your reports
completely ignored me,
be completely a marketing tool and not a tool that has utility, like a real tool, like that the industry can use.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you're going to be inaccurate. I'm not going to say, and I say you, the kind of the global you. If your motivations are there, what you're going to focus on is the new.
How do I get to the agenda that I have as well as helping the industry, and it crosses and muddies the waters?
It's one of those topics I talk about a lot, and anyone who can not fall asleep long enough to hear me out knows that I talk a lot about the idea, and we've talked about it on here before, whether it's exploratory or confirmatory. And if you're looking to confirm something, that's probably what you'll do. If you're exploring, that's a little different. So, but anyway, I just think it's interesting that twice this week I've heard, and part of it is because the messages are getting watered down. They're putting, it's, and I sound really old when I say this, but it's like the industry, the travel industry overall, likes to put a cute name to something, and all of a sudden that becomes the buzzword, and it becomes the thing. Like there was
because it's marketing.
Right, it is, because it's all marketing. But it's like the new thing this year is people want to take skillcations. And
what?
Oh, see, look, I'm ahead of you. It's basically
who coined that term?
I'm not sure who did it. Right. But basically it's the idea of taking a vacation and learning how to do something. Things that people have been doing for a really long time. We just haven't had a word for it. But here's the other. It
doesn't count unless we have a word for it, Scott.
I know, and I'm terrible at that shit. So the idea, though,
next time you hear your grandma tell a story about like, I remember when I was a kid and I went and learned how. No, you didn't, Grandma. There was no fucking word for it, so you didn't actually learn that thing, Grandma.
Right? Exactly.
I don't know what to tell you. You got to start all over.
Yep. So, but here's the thing: you read these articles. And at no point in time does anyone quote a study or any work that they did. They're just saying, hey, go here and, learn how to make a coffee mug, or it's like, and that's great. That's stuff we've talked about, stuff like that on the show how many times? Ad nauseum, yeah. We've talked about it. Like do stuff like that.
But we don't issue a report claiming it's an authority, right? Is that what you're saying?
And we don't give it a cute name. And I don't know, Brian. We're gonna have
We should come up with some cute names.
We got to start coming up with cute names because
Yeah.
we're behind the curve on this.
I'm going to try to come up with cute names from it going forward. But it's interesting. It is interesting how like people frame all kinds of different things, right? Like I was watching a podcast the other day, and they were talking about this a little bit about the economy and GDP and how it is. Obviously, we all know, well, the people who study this enough or come across their desks enough know that GDP is a horrible metric to judge the future of where the actual United States economy is today. But it brought me. I remember this joke that I can only tell on Outwired. I can't tell on MC Fireside Chats. It was I like it's not anything that I ever wrote, right? Like I've heard multiple people say it in the past, but it talks to the point of like how you can spin the data. So there's all right. So you ready for this, Scott? I may butcher this.
I'm bracing myself.
So there's an economist. There's two economists, and they're walking down the street, just chatting to each other, having a good time, catching up, whatever else. And then they come across a pile of shit laying on the road right in front of them, right? And so the first economist turns to the second economist. He's like, "I'll give you $100 to eat that shit." And the second economist is like, "All right, I'll take that deal." So he picks up the shit, eats the shit, and gets $100 from it. So they keep walking down the street, and they're just chatting around, having a good time. And then they come across the second pile of shit. And then the second economist, the other one who ate the shit before, turns to the first one. He's like, "I'll pay you $100 to eat that pile of shit." He's like, "All right, I'll do that." And then they're walking along after they both have eaten piles of shit, and they look at each other and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We both have $100 in our pockets, which is the same amount we started with before, but we've now both eaten piles of shit. But we've contributed $200 to the global economy." So that's basically that's one of the best economic jokes I've ever heard. But it's like that. Like you can just spin this data in any way you want. And if you don't look at how you're digesting it, and if you don't look at who it's coming from, where it's coming from, what the methodology is behind it, who the research company is, what their purpose was, what their motivation was, is it marketing, is it whatever, you're going to not get the complete picture. Right?
Absolutely. And from my perspective, I've been harping on this forever. Anyone who knows me knows I talk about this a lot. But, I just invite people to ask more questions, get into the results a little bit more. If it sounds really cutesy and whatever, it's probably not anything you should be making a decision based on, and that would just be a word of caution to anyone. It's like, if it really sounds too cute to be true, it is too cute to be true. And, maybe move along. It's kind of like if you're, I got off on a rant last week on this topic. It's somewhat similar. And that is, if you're making business decisions, not marketing decisions, business decisions based off influencers, you need to stop.
Yeah.
They're not business developers. They're marketers. They're people who stay for free at places and eat for free.
Are we influencers, by the way?
Micro influencers, maybe.
Okay. So until we get bigger,
it's okay to be. I should qualify that a little bit. There are influencers who are influencers for good reason that they do.
Right. I mean, to be clear, like whether it's influencers or whether it's these companies that are putting out these reports, I don't think any of them intentionally are planning to mislead you or to send you down the wrong path or, whatever. Right. I think the end result sometimes is for sure what we're talking about, but I don't think any of these companies, maybe there's one or two, right? Most of them don't set out with what Jessica just said, malicious intent, right? They get there perhaps because they don't have the methodology and training and background that a Scott Barr would, but I don't think they start out trying to mislead. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. And the vast majority of people are not, doing it for nefarious reasons. But it's also incumbent upon the consumer of the information to, ask questions, to do their due diligence as well.
All right. So the title of our Outwired report will be Outwired, It Might Get Fucked Up. and that's not cute. So that means you should listen to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I like where this is going. All right, what came across your desk that you think we should talk about?
This week we gathered all the data for this year's camping and outdoor hospitality report.
Okay.
So that literally came across my desk this week. We included, I think, some really in-depth topics this year. I think people are we're going to take a real critical look at a lot of what we're seeing in trends. And I wish I could share more information today.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get it. It's coming.
But it's one of those things where I would like people to ask me more questions too, because what we do is we look at what we have, and then in some cases we'll go back out and gather more information. So I would say if anyone has questions.
Wait 1 second.
Okay.
I have Scott Barr on my podcast right now. He's the guy who did the KOA North American Camping Report. I have this super unique opportunity to ask him any question I want. Give me 5 mind-blowingly unique questions I should ask him right now. Okay, go ahead, continue. Well, I'm going to ask you.
So
you said you wanted more people to ask you questions.
Yep. And because what we'll do is go back out and ask more. We'll ask more questions because we want to make sure that we really to get into the weeds on these topics. And sometimes things come up that we don't anticipate. Some of the results, some of the topics we want to dig into a little bit more. But there's going to be some really interesting information, and some of it's based on what we've seen out there in the travel industry. What we try to do is take something. We'll use the one from earlier, the skillcation, for example. We'll take a topic like that and we'll actually try to quantify it. Like, how many people actually do this, and how many people are interested in doing it? Like, how many people actually did this last year? Is it really something? I can tell you, typically these things tend to be pretty low.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I see in the comments, we have a comment. Dylan Zingler said, haha, they both eat it.
Do we have a chat? Yeah, show that. Yeah. You got to go click the chat on the side, Jessica. Jessica's distracted. She's being influenced on social media.
She's looking at influencers.
Yeah. All right. So, what is the most important find? This is what I should ask you. No, you don't have to type that. So go. I don't know if you know this, Jessica, because we don't get that many comments because the groups don't send us comments for the people who watch. Only the pages do. Yeah. See. And then you can actually click Dylan's chat. And if you click show, it'll show on the screen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, look at that. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. So 5 questions that I should ask Scott that will cut through the noise. What's the most important finding in the report that the industry is completely... Hold on, wait. I want to ask you a different question. Not specifically about the report. I want you to tell me anything I could ask him about anything in the history of like whatever he's done research-wise with his expertise. It could be about the report, but ask the most 5 crazy, unique, interesting questions that anybody could ever ask him that no one likely has before. See what that does. Now Dylan's just commenting because he wants to get on the air more.
Yeah.
You don't have to put him on. You don't have to put him on. We love you, Dylan, but we don't have to
Keep putting them on.
Don't say that. He might comment like 45 times.
Good.
Oh, Jessica can't hear. Oh, yeah, that's true. Jessica's talking and I can't. So,
no,
I've been thinking a while. Go ahead. Yeah.
So again, questions. I like questions. I like topics that sometimes like we try to anticipate as much as we can, and there's a lot of depth to what we do, but we obviously can't ask everything of everyone. And I think there's a couple findings that are going to be I'll tease up a little bit without giving anything away, but just on the kind of the emotional and social part of camping and glamping in the outdoors. I think people will be a little bit surprised at that when they see the results, because they're really fucking cool. Really, it's one of those things where when you see it, you're like, oh damn, that's really interesting. And I'm sorry to tease everybody.
When is it coming out? March?
March. Yep.
Okay, that's too long to wait. I don't like that. I have questions for you in a second. Sorry, I got distracted while you were talking. All right, 5 questions. You started your career researching healthcare behavior in the early 90s. I didn't prompt this with anything before what you talked to me, right? This is a brand new conversation.
Found me on LinkedIn, probably.
You started your career researching healthcare behavior in the early 90s and then studied casino gamblers at Caesars, and now you're deep in camping. What's the most surprising universal truth about human behavior that shows up across sick patients, gamblers, and campers? 3 groups that seem completely unrelated.
The common thread across all those would be that in general, people are pretty passive overall.
Okay.
They're not very good at actively going out and finding information. And they're in all 3 spaces. Trust is a big issue, whether you're in hospitality or healthcare. That the idea of trust breaks through in all 3. That in healthcare it seems real obvious, but also in hospitality. Working for Caesars Entertainment, it's like the people walk into the casino and they're putting some trust in you. They know that you're probably going to take their money, but they're going to trust you that they're going to have fun. It's going to be clean, that it's going to be safe. And it's the same thing in the outdoors. People expect things to be clean. They expect it to be safe. They're trusting you. They're putting themselves at your, under your control almost, in that environment. So yeah, those are things that I say that kind of cut across. The healthcare one's the hardest to make the thread, by the way. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right. After, you want to keep going?
Sure.
After 30 years of asking people why they do things, do you actually trust what people tell you anymore? Or have you learned that the data reveals more about what humans want to believe about themselves than what's actually true?
I'd say that it's somewhere in the middle. That people, believe it or not, have better self-awareness than we give them credit for in some cases. It really does depend on the topic a little bit, but we also know, and it's kind of like our fireside chat earlier today about the idea of people saying what they want to do, what they intend to do, and where that falls down. That is very much a part of the mix. So when people in most of my work, and anyone who's gone through anything I've done will see that I focus a lot on, I call it the strength of response, and that is how strong is someone's response. If they're, you'll see a lot of people present information, like say you have a 5-point scale, they'll report like they're likely, it's the top 2 box. It's like, yeah, that's a little soft. It's the most likely group. That's the most likely to actually follow through. Okay. And even some of those are going to peel off. So I don't take it 100%, but what we do a lot is we work in the world of sentiment, where people, it's like, does your brand have a positive sentiment? And if it does, how positive is that? And what's the depth of that sentiment? What's the depth of their knowledge of your brand and of and you can use campgrounds here as the case. What's their level of understanding? So you can still trust what they're saying. You just have to be really careful about how you measure it and then how you interpret it. And part of that is, is it positive or negative? Like if you see a negative, then you need to really think that that's something to really pay attention to, because people have this desire to please. And that's one of the things we also know in all these years I've been doing this work, is that they have a positive response bias in nearly everything they do. So we account for that. We try to hit things from a couple different angles. But I generally trust people. We've that's why we do some interviews with people too. That's a really good way, by the way, to get to where people's heads are really at, is to have a conversation with them.
Okay, that's fair. You live in rural Maine and personally ski, hike, kayak, and fly fish. Has there ever been a moment where the data you collected about campers completely contradicted your own gut instincts as someone who lives this lifestyle, and which did you trust?
As someone who works in research, yeah, there's many cases where what I do differs greatly. Like, I think everybody should love to go backpacking. And it's like, what do you mean you don't like it? What do you mean you don't want to do that? I think, because to me, it's the best experience ever. But people don't really want to do that. It's a small sliver of people who do that kind of stuff. So it does fall short of, as an anecdote, when I first started working with KOA, I recall once Jim Rogers, who was the CEO at the time, asked me if I'd ever stayed at a KOA campground, and I had to tell him no, I hadn't. And he actually got pissed at me, and he made me stay a couple times, a few times. I've actually stayed several times now, but just so I kind of got to feel and understood what the guest experience was at the KOA campground, because that's not how I camp. My experiences are very different. So yeah, I have to separate that, which is, I'll try not to get on too much of a tangent here, but this brings up one of the points I made last week in a conversation with someone, which was being in a bubble. Okay. Like, your own bubble, your own personal situation does not necessarily apply to everybody else. And that's it's hard to do. But
yeah, I'm in my fucking bubble about AI, right?
So yeah, we all are, to a degree. It's how big is your bubble, and what do you actually try to reach outside it too? But it's hard to, what we have to do sometimes is understand that the world isn't what's inside our bubble. There's more outside that. And we have to consciously remind ourselves of that. Believe me, I'm not exempt from any of this shit. It's like,
it's human nature.
Yeah.
All right. If you could go back and add one question to the very first KOA report 10 plus years ago that you never thought to ask, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I would ask a much forward-looking question of people, because we were at a weird phase at the time, that we weren't really, we focused a little bit too much on looking back, but that group that was really new to camping at the time, especially because what we saw was that at that time, where it was a transition time, when we had a lot of people, a lot of Black, Hispanic, Asian campers coming in, and they were really, it was because of the millennial generation. And one of the things we failed to do was retain more young people, more people, especially within those groups. And I would like to ask them more questions, and even just one question about, what do we really got to do to keep you going with this? That's a technical question. No, I mean, to basically ask them what we need to do, what needs to happen for you to continue participating in the outdoors, because I feel like we failed in many regards.
Okay. All right, last one. You ready for this?
Okay, I hope so.
Forget camping for a second. If someone gave you unlimited budget to research any human behavior phenomenon on Earth, completely outside your industry, what would you study and why?
Whoa. This is, I know we don't talk about this a lot, but I think for me, I would want to study much more about how people's overall, like, environments that they grow up in, that they're a part of, that they're immersed in, how that impacts them long term, but also in their decisions. And it could be anything from how they shop to like how they vote. These things to me are fascinating. They're really fascinating topics. And, you know, I've done political polling in the past, and it's super interesting to get into that kind of topic and really immerse yourself in it and do something but cross-culturally as well. Because we see things all the time and people are scratching their heads. It's like, how did that happen? You know, how did this happen? Like, how did this product become popular? You know, how did that happen? What did they tap into?
It's all brainwashing. Yeah,
there's a lot of guesswork out there, and I think, but like, well, how does the brainwashing work? How does that?
Do you want to know?
I mean, if we really knew how it worked, everybody would be doing it, right?
Okay. Fuck. I'm gonna find you a video in a second. Keep going though.
Oh, okay.
It'll blow your mind. Like, we won't have time to watch the whole thing, but I'm gonna find you a video.
But anyway, it's stuff like that kind of that holistic picture of what goes on in someone, you know, from again, how they shop, how they choose brands, how they how they choose their friends, how they choose their enemies. The one thing that AI didn't find in my history was that I actually used to do work for the World Health Organization, and we did a lot of cross-cultural studies.
Jessica, find this video.
And the cross-cultural studies are super interesting. Doing that kind of stuff is because you see how the foundations of someone's life, how that affects them moving forward, whether it's career choices, relationships, or recreation, brand preferences, all that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Like, you bring up a good question, because like I've had these conversations, not anywhere about data or how it impacts that stuff, but just casually with people before, as I've thought about different things. Like one of my buddies, Aaron, is really deep into Catholicism and the history of Jesus, but all the historical stuff and the science behind all the miracles and all that. And I'm not going to talk about religion, I promise. But one of the things I'll constantly just joke around with him about, he's not really religious, right? I just kind of give him shit every once in a while, just because he's so deep into the history of it and all that stuff, right? And one of the anecdotes I gave him, like I've been giving him all the time, is like, if you were a child and you grew up believing in Santa Claus, as many kids do, right? But you continually got older to 6, 7, 8, 9, and you didn't go to school, and your parents never told you that Santa Claus wasn't real. And you never went down and, caught your parents eating, drinking the milk and cookies or whatever else like that. And everybody you grew up with throughout the rest of your life, whether they were adults or teachers or whoever you met in your life or wherever you went, also still believed in Santa Claus. You would still believe in Santa Claus at 30 years old, because you would have no reason to have that belief challenged. And so I think that's an interesting example of the way that our childhood frames us. Unless that is interrupted or broken, or an assumption is challenged, or we have research or data points, or we catch our mom and dad eating the cookies, it's really interesting what we might believe in different circumstances, different worlds, and different religions, and in different cultures that we grow up in, foods that we eat, all kinds of stuff, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. We really want to talk about brainwashing? We're going to go down a rabbit hole here. This is going to blow your mind. Are you serious?
All right.
This is the craziest thing. This has nothing to do with camping, by the way. Although we could probably use it for research in the future. When we do studies, and like, because we talked about earlier how I'm going to live to be 150, 200 years old. We're going to be doing market research that long, probably. This is the most mind-blowing video that I've maybe ever seen, but for sure in the last like 3 years. You know how you'll be exposed to this thing and you'll be like, holy shit, I can't believe that's a thing. Like one of those things.
Yep.
This is it. We may end up watching this whole video. Like, you just give me a signal and be like thumbs down if you're bored with it. I think you're going to be fascinated by it because it blew my mind.
Something massive just happened in neuroscience that should not be possible. These researchers took the deadliest virus on the planet, then they rewired this thing and they used it to watch psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, physically repair the brain in real time all the way down to the exact neurons that are involved. What they discovered in this study changes everything that we thought we knew about consciousness and identity and trauma, and even who you are as a human being. So if you ever wondered how one psychedelic experience can change somebody's life, you're about to see the actual mechanism right here. And I don't say this as a metaphor because I know that neuroplasticity is a buzzword now. What I'm talking about is programmable rewiring captured with a legitimately weaponized virus, and the implications are unbelievably staggering. So stay with me, because the breakthrough isn't just what psilocybin does in the brain, it's how we can actually physically control what it's doing in the brain. The last part of this video might be the most astonishing thing that you've ever heard about the human mind. So let me start with the part that feels like science fiction, but it's not. Since 2021, we've known that psilocybin grows new connections between neurons. Thousands and thousands, millions of them. They last weeks, and some of them are permanent. But there was a big problem with that. It's that nobody knew where specifically those connections actually went and what happened. So we basically knew that the brain grows these new little roadways, but we have no idea which cities these roads are connecting. And this is where Cornell and the Allen Institute did something almost unthinkable. They turned to rabies. Yes, the weird thing that makes dogs foam at the mouth and bite people and stuff. The rabies virus naturally travels backwards through your nervous system. So it jumps from one neuron and then into every neuron that sends signals to that neuron, and then into every neuron upstream of all of those. It's the ultimate retrograde neuron tracking system, but it's also the deadliest pathogen that we know. So scientists engineered a version of this rabies that only jumps one neuron at a time. And they deleted the gene that enables lethal replication, and they added this little green, actually green, fluorescent marker to it. And they turned this most deadly virus in the world into a biological neon green highlighter. So it's a virus that kills, and it's now just getting used in this experiment to just highlight and light up the circuitry of physiological and psychological healing within the nervous system. So this is exactly where everything totally changes. Let's talk about the actual study here. On day one, they injected what they called a helper virus into the frontal cortex of these mice to prime these very super specific neurons first. And that incubated for about 13 days. And on day 14, one of these groups received psilocybin. The other group just got some regular saline. On day 16, they injected this modified rabies virus with the green highlighter in it into the exact same brain region. On day 21, the virus had spread backward, just one synapse, one neuron. Then the brains were harvested from the mice, and this is where it gets totally wild. They used something called light sheet microscopy, where it's just a ton of little super thin slices, unimaginably thin. And then they photograph every slice of each mouse brain. These are millions and millions of images. Then they counted every green highlighter neuron. And this is over 500,000 inputs per brain that they scanned. And each one of these things was mapped to its exact location across 316 brain regions. This was the first complete map of psilocybin and how it rewires the human brain that's ever been done in history. The results we thought were going to be random. We'd expect them to be pretty chaotic, and they were not at all. So the rewiring followed a pattern so statistically improbable. This value in the study is listed as P equals 0.00006. That's the odds of it happening by chance. So something very, very specific was happening in the brain. So the connections that got stronger, up to 10%, plus 10%, they were all sensory, and 10% is a massive deal. And the sensory parts were the primary somatosensory cortex, the primary visual cortex, the motor cortex, the retrosplenial cortex, and this is where we have like spatial memory, where we are in space. So in other words, psilocybin strengthens your connection to the external world. The world feels more vivid on psilocybin because your brain is literally wiring itself back into the world because those neurons are active. And then there's some connections that got weaker in the study, and they weakened by a full 15%. This is massive. And this is all in regions that build our internal narrative of who we are. And the first one is the infralimbic area. And this is down in the limbic system area. But this is where we have some fear responses. And then we have this little tiny piece of the brain called the insula. This is where we have anxiety, threat detection, stuff like that. Then we have the hippocampus. This was reduced. Memory is what the hippocampus does. Then we have the amygdala. This is our emotional center. And this other part of the brain called the orbitofrontal cortex. And this is where we sit and ruminate about stuff, or we expect something. We have some kind of expectations in our life. So let me put that in plain English for you. Psilocybin temporarily quiets the brain regions that generate you as a human being. All your fears, your memories, our little self-referential loops. The default mode network is the engine of depression, and that goes quiet as well. It loses its grip completely. And this is why people say the world feels new, because it literally is making a new world for you. But there is one part of this study that nobody expected. These researchers decide to silence just one brain region during the psilocybin session. So they chemically shut this brain region down. So the silenced region did not get rewired, but every other active region did. And this is massive. So the wiring is not random at all. It's very context dependent, it's experience dependent, and it is programmable. So essentially what they're saying here in the study is we've proven that when your brain grows, you become what you pay attention to. And that means something pretty extraordinary, and actually, I think, extremely dangerous. Because if you know for a fact which pathways are going to be active, then you can choose which pathways are going to get strengthened. And if you can silence the ones that cause fear and rumination and anxiety and trauma, you can weaken them big time. So we now know that if you want to strengthen your visual processing, you can show visual stimuli during the session. If you want to reduce anxiety loops, you can quiet down the insula or the amygdala during peak plasticity moments. If you want to reshape an entire human identity, you can guide someone's attention into new self-models while the old ones are offline. Right now, we are crossing a massive threshold, a huge threshold in neuroscience, maybe the biggest one ever. So for the first time in the history of neuroscience, we're not just watching a brain go through some changes. We can now watch what the brain is becoming. So this discovery shows us something that I think is pretty damn beautiful. Our brains, our mind, is not fixed. It's extremely evolving and dynamic, and we're witnessing our brain's ability to essentially rewire itself. And now we can see and then edit the script of that rewiring. So you might think this is maybe it's a therapy breakthrough, or maybe it's all about trauma and depression. But this is the first time in science we've identified the exact circuits that change during a transformative experience like this. We are seeing the real-life blueprint of what's going on when we read these stories about how somebody's healed in a single session, or PTSD just kind of disappears. And we're seeing all of that neuron by neuron. So once you can see all of that circuitry, now you can design it. And that's the dangerous part, because this also means identity. This thing that I call Chase, the thing that you call you, is not a constant. Identity is a product of whatever networks are active. And those networks can now be turned up or turned down. This is your personality, memories, reactions, fears, all of that. They're not as permanent as they feel. And I think that truth is a double-edged sword. It's liberating, but it's extremely unsettling for some people. And here's what I think this truly means as a whole. Whoever controls your attention during a psychedelic window They control what gets strengthened, they control what gets weakened, and they control which version of you comes out on the other end of that experience. So this is a discovery with the power to heal millions and millions of people. It's also the power to manipulate them. So I think we are entering an era, just with this study being published, where consciousness itself can be pretty much engineered. But I think the most astonishing and beautiful part about this is that the breakthrough doesn't just show us how psilocybin changes the human brain. This shows us that consciousness may not be a static property at all. In this study, for the first time, we can see real code in all of that stuff. And once you see it, you're not going to unsee it. So if you want to understand the next layer, why the brain relaxes its grip on reality during these states and how your predictive model shapes everything that you experience, watch the next few videos that we have coming out this week and next week, because once you understand the brain's prediction engine, everything about this breakthrough gets even more weird. If you're into this study, you want to look into it, I'll put a link down in the description underneath this video. So this is a...
All right, what do you think? You're muted.
Yep, I got it now. No, I've heard, not at this level of detail, some of the studies that they've been doing, especially in Europe, where they don't have the issues with doing the testing, and just how impactful these things are. But it is they're the ability to engineer our brains. It's already here.
Literally brainwash you. What I just took away from that, and you have a background in neuroscience, don't you? A little bit.
Yep.
You said you're working with the brain. Like, what I took away from that is, like, if you're in a session theoretically in this environment under psilocybin, then they can literally change your beliefs, your thoughts, your memories, your fears, what you think is true, what you don't think is, like, that's literally what he just said, didn't he? Now, it's only been proven in mice, to be fair, but isn't that what he just said? Yeah.
Right. Okay, there it is, the real Manchurian candidate.
I mean, what the fuck? Like, this is a study released in December. This is a new video, right? Like a newish video in the last few weeks. So I haven't watched the other videos in the series yet, like you said, but you reminded me of that when you were talking about that, about brainwashing. So I think then the follow-on to what you were talking about is once we have control over this, which we will rapidly because of AI, right? We will very rapidly figure out all the things that it just took them probably 5 or 6 years or however long the study was to figure out, right? We will rapidly iterate on that stuff. And so then at that point, does it matter what your childhood was when we can just go, you like camping now?
All right, everybody's on board for that.
I mean, it's really not beyond the realm of possibility. Like, I mean, it really isn't. Now, obviously, that's something that's both bad and good. Right? For sure. But the good side is what he talked about, helping all the people who struggle with anxiety and depression and all that stuff, right? And irrational fears and trauma that they had as childhood and PTSD from wars and things like that, right? But the bad, man, I mean, the bad, unchecked, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's the downside of it, obviously. Like I said, the Manchurian candidate, that's how you create one. But
yeah, but now you can do it in like a session. You don't have to do it over, like, wasn't the Manchurian candidate over years or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man, because that's a double-edged sword. Like, will you ever really know that happens? Like, I don't know. Like, you'd have to be on psilocybin, so I guess you would know, right?
Yeah. Well, good question. It depends on,
There's probably a fucking X-Files episode about how they put psilocybin in the water.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they actually do that. I'm just saying there's probably an X-Files episode about it if we want to study how it might happen. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So we talked about psilocybin. Some other cool things. There's a couple other cool videos I have that were recent updates. There's one I have on robotics from CES that came out from Hyundai. Do you want to check this out real quick?
Sure.
It's in a tab up there. Well, hit your back button then. Yeah, just rewind that to the beginning. Yeah. We won't watch the whole thing, but like we'll watch a couple minutes of it or whatever. This is Hyundai at CES. Hyundai? I don't know. How do you pronounce it?
Hyundai.
We've been working on humanoids for more than a decade at Boston Dynamics, always keeping a close watch on when the missing pieces of technology would fall into place to make it truly commercially viable. The rapid advancements in AI over the past few years are the piece that we needed, and that moment is finally here. Now it's time to officially take Atlas out of the lab. So for the first time ever in public, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Atlas to the stage.
As you can see, Atlas really does stand up the way that we show in our videos online. And we get tons of questions about this. Zach, while we have everyone here, do you want to provide a little bit of insight into how we made that decision?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Atlas doesn't have to move like a person does, and we're looking for the most stable, efficient way to get up, and it turns out this is it.
The other question we get all the time is how Atlas is moving. How is Atlas moving today?
So in normal operation, Atlas is fully autonomous on a job site, but today, Sarvesh, one of our FAEs, is piloting Atlas on the stage, giving it really simple instructions like forwards and backwards, just to keep things simple. This is Atlas's first time in public, and as you can see, its walk is pretty natural and pretty smooth. We've partnered with our sister organization, the Robotics and AI Institute, to push the limits on natural walking just for this performance. And I think we've done something really special. We've also been at this robotics thing for a while, and we've learned that there's more to it than just copying nature. We can pick the best parts of what nature has to offer and do better in others. So as you can see, Atlas here has joints that can move 360 degrees. This lets Atlas move even more efficiently than humans, particularly in manufacturing environments where every second counts. We've also designed Atlas's head and face very purposefully. We want folks working with Atlas to know that Atlas is a helpful robot, not a person.
Seeing Atlas live in action for the first time is wildly exciting. But seeing it perform real industrial work is even more compelling. We recently took this robot down to the Hyundai Motor Group Metaplant America to have Atlas test in a real manufacturing facility where we performed autonomous material handling tasks. We proved that humanoids could be viable in a
So it's a longer video and it goes through this. If you're interested, you can watch it. It's on YouTube. But he does go through here and talk about how they're building a factory for these robots, and I think their goal is to produce, I think he said 10,000 a year. It might be more than that, just in the one factory, like imminently, right? So these things are going to start to roll off the line pretty quickly, and that thing moves pretty cool. I don't know if you think that.
So here's a question I have about robotics, and that is the reason they're all designed to look like humans because we're more comfortable with it? Because it doesn't seem like the bipedal approach is the most efficient.
It's not. They're designed that way because the whole world is designed around us.
Okay.
So if you design a humanoid with a humanoid form factor, then it can go through doors and it can get in cars and it can open dishwashers and it can make coffee and it can operate the stove and it can run vacuum cleaners and it can, right? The form factor allows it to get into the world as quickly as it possibly can and do as many things as it possibly can. That's why it's designed that way. But to your point, like it can iterate like to things like Boston Dynamics. It can pick the best of nature. Eventually, you'll see other robots. You'll see specialized tools with like 8 arms and stuff like that, right? Because that does make more sense long term.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, of course, they'd be creepy. They'd look like spiders, big mechanical spiders running around, and might freak some people out. Me.
But this stuff is coming. Like this is coming so fast. Like I don't even I haven't. We'll watch a quick video here. We don't want to talk about this too much because this is going to be in the Outwired report, right? I have not watched this video, Scott, but it's 2 minutes, and it came up on my YouTube feed, and it's related to what we're going to report on. So let's see what they say. Yeah.
Warns that an AI-fueled job apocalypse is on the horizon. Let's bring in Saul Khan. He's the CEO of the Khan Academy. In his latest piece for the New York Times, Saul makes the pitch that every company benefiting from automation should dedicate 1% of profits to help retrain workers who will be displaced by AI. Sal, first of all, thanks for being here. Second of all, this is a pretty radical proposal, but let's lay out what you think is happening. Why you think this job apocalypse is coming?
Yeah, as soon as generative AI became a big thing, obviously this has been a big debate. Will we have net loss jobs, net gain jobs? And living out here in Silicon Valley, most people have been on, hey, this is going to be like the Industrial Revolution. We'll just, there'll be jobs. We can't name them, but they'll happen. But what we're seeing now, in that op-ed I talk about seeing the Waymos in my neighborhood, and that's cool. But then I go and meet with a friend who is thinking about contributing 1% of his firm's profits for reskilling, and his motivation was he's taken over a call center in the Philippines, and he's going to be laying off 80% of the workforce and replacing them with an AI. That's 7 to 10% of the Filipino GDP directly. Driving some form of a vehicle is 4 to 5 million workers just in the United States. It's one of the biggest sources of employment for men globally, including in the United States. And even if you look at white collar jobs, a lot of people are talking about and seeing what's happening in software engineering right now. It seems kind of frozen. Things like product management, design, we're seeing that those jobs are at least changing. You're not seeing a lot of net hiring. If anything, there's a lot of things going the other way. And the only way to think about how to navigate this, I think if folks wait too long, the political winds are going to switch. We've already seen that populism can get a lot of momentum off of things like globalization and immigration. I think automation is going to hit a lot harder. And 1% isn't without precedent. As I mentioned, one of my friends, he hasn't announced it yet. That's why I'm not naming their firm, but it's a major firm. There's Ares Capital, another major asset manager. They have a class of funds, several $1 billion under management, where they're giving 5% of their promote to philanthropy they're doing healthcare and education, but that's related to reskilling. So the pitch here is it's in companies' best interest. This isn't going to be just, hope isn't a strategy here. We have to get ahead of the curve. The benefits of doing something significantly weigh out the alternative. And I think if we don't do something, politics are going to take over, and that's going to be worse for everyone.
Okay. So we didn't.
This new wave of AI
he didn't really get into his definition of what the AI job apocalypse was going to be, which I thought he might. Again, we'll touch more on this when we have an Outwired report come out later. But I'm curious about what you think of your overall 2026 predictions. Where do we think we're going to go from your perspective, Scott? Take it where.
I think this year is going to be relatively flat. I think we might, we'll see certain regions probably do a little bit better than others. We're going to see I think we're going to start seeing a switch over in a lot of campgrounds to more long-term stays.
Already been seeing some of that in 2025. So
yeah. I think that will continue into 2026. And what I'm looking for this year is for the RV industry to really have some real genuine innovation. Like I just feel like there's someone out there doing something really different that's gonna.
We've had him on the show. There is.
But I mean, anyway, that's something weird that we haven't anticipated.
Okay.
That people are gonna slap their foreheads. It's that old forehead slapper moment where it's like, oh damn, why didn't we do
that all along? Yeah.
Yeah. it was kind of like back in the day when was it Dodge and their minivans put a sliding door on both sides of the van, and everybody's like, "Oh shit, why didn't I think of that?" You know, they were the first ones out with it, and everybody's like, "That's a great idea." You know, it's a pretty simple innovation, but it was revolutionary. It really was. It boosted the company, and they took off with it, and they sold a lot of minivans. So anyway, something, you know, along those lines, that it's going to be a head slapper, and everybody's going to be wondering why they didn't do it. And maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, but I feel like the industry is really ripe for disruption. I feel like my prediction is, as you know, when we were talking with Phil today about, you know, what's going on in the RV industry, and you know, you're talking about, you know, higher income people and the class A's. It's like, what's going to be that innovation that brings in that middle to lower income person? That maybe the person that's living in their Subaru now, you know, like what's, you know, how do you bring them on board? So that to me is, you know, and also I feel like this year is going to be, you're going to see more people wanting more rustic experiences, and that's for two reasons. One, they're attracted to them because things are their lives are pretty hectic. But two, to save money. It's you know, I think you're going to see a lot more people out there. Just, you know, they're going to be going to national forests. They're going to be going to, you know, the free camping places and boondocking and stuff. So. But you might also see some campgrounds pop up that are rustic, that have very minimal services, but, you know, small boutique rustic campgrounds.
Okay. So overall, flat to slightly maybe down in some areas.
Yeah, it really depends on where you're at.
Okay. Should we read what AI thinks? Just ask a question in a new conversation for context. Sure. It says, based on the data, and this is Claude, so it didn't go out and research like extensively, right, on this. Here's my objective predictions for outdoor hospitality in 2026. The consolidation squeeze accelerates. The industry is at an inflection point similar to hotels decades ago. 90% of parks still owned by mom and pop with less than 5 properties. The math is brutal. Institutional buyers are hunting, and 2026 could feature more M&A activity as AI adoption increases. The spread between professionally managed and independent operations will widen significantly, for sure. Parks without data-driven pricing, automation, and online reputation management will see their valuations compress relative to institutional-grade properties. That's number one. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the consolidation will definitely continue just because of, you know, the realities, the financial realities.
Okay. AI moves from buzzword to bifurcation. 2026 will be the year campground owners start competing with AI. Competing with AI? Rather than just talking about it? The industry, I don't know if competing is the right word. I feel like that's weird. The industry divides into two camps: operators using AI for dynamic pricing, automated guest communication, and review management, versus those still relying on 2019 playbooks. Okay, there you go, competing with AI. Because you're not using AI, you're competing with the people who are using AI. That's what I think it's talking about. The productivity gap becomes measurable, not theoretical. Chatbots shift from nice to have to table stakes, and the parks that deployed them in 24 and 25 will have knowledge bases mature enough to meaningfully reduce labor costs. So that's it.
Yeah.
And normalizes and not crashes. Nearly 4 in 10 leisure travelers, 39%, plan to take an RV trip in the coming year. That was from the RVIA. It's citing it in its study. Still elevated from pre-pandemic, but stabilized. The panic about a post-COVID collapse hasn't materialized. However, RV travel is seen as a safer, flexible, and cost-effective alternative to flying or hotels. Again, it's just researching and saying, positions the sector as recession resilient. During economic uncertainty, people often trade down to RV vacations instead of canceling travel altogether. Given RV trips can be 25 to 60% cheaper than other options. Expect flat to modest industry growth industry-wide with high variance by property. So that's the industry narrative that we've already heard, right?
Right.
Do you Well, you disagree with that a little bit, right? Is what you just said.
Yeah, I do. I think that that's a little optimistic. I don't think I think interest is there, but unfortunately for a lot of people, the
Money isn't.
RV of choice is going to be instead of a home. That's why long-term stays are going to increase. People can't afford to buy homes, so they're going to buy RVs, and one of the reasons is that RV financing is very friendly. So you can finance an RV like a home, only your payment's a lot less. So
you can do a 30-year mortgage on an RV?
I think, what is it? I think they're doing 15. I think they're doing 15 year.
All right. That'll be interesting to see. The EV charging infrastructure gap creates winners. 24% of camping travelers now own an EV. Really? You think it's that high?
That seems high.
Citing some InnoWave studio, so maybe that's the garbage data you were talking about being out there.
Yeah,
far higher than the general public. Parks that invest in charging infrastructure in 2026 capture a disproportionate share of high-value demographic. EV owners skew affluent. Parks without it increasingly lose to competitors or OTA platforms that filter for this amenity. What do you think the percentage is?
I'd say among outdoors people, it is higher, especially that higher income. I think nationally it's like something like 7%. So I would venture it's probably in the 10 to 12% range.
Okay. Glamping peaks and experiences differentiate, with 3.6% of parks now offering glamping options and 10.3% including cabins, tiny homes, or yurts, which is cited from RV Park IQ. The novelty factor fades. The glamping market becomes saturated in secondary locations. Surviving operators will need genuine experience differentiation rather than just tent with a bed. Themed experiences, wellness amenities, and local integration become the new battleground.
I would say that is probably very accurate. I think glamping is the novelty's wearing off. It's definitely wearing off. It still has a place and it'll still be strong, but it's not going to see the exponential growth that you've seen in the last few years.
I was just trying to look at this RV Park IQ study and see if RV Park IQ claims that they track 16,200 plus privately owned parks. Somehow I doubt that all that data made it into the study and that they actually track that on a recurring basis. That's a large number of properties. Right?
Yeah.
It says, on the residential side, roughly 6,200 offers mobile home or long-term. So there's 6,000 of that is 10,000. There's only about, 4,000 to 6,000 private, if that many, in the U.S.?
Campgrounds, private campgrounds?
Yeah.
There's
a little bit more?
It's closer to 10.
Not counting the state parks?
Not counting state parks.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Anyway, okay, that was the study for that. The real opportunity, as you said, AI says the same thing, long-term and housing adjacent stays. The data suggests something the industry undersells. 38% of privately owned parks operate as mobile home or long-term RV resort communities. And approximately 18.1 million Americans are now digital nomads. Is that true?
It sounds right.
It came from the same InnoWave studio. Yeah. Whatever.
That's high. That's high.
Let's see what this is. I don't know who InnoWave Studio is. It looks like, I don't know what it is. Some generic blog. So, the housing affordability crisis isn't going anywhere. Parks positioned as affordable housing alternatives, not just vacation destinations, have a structural tailwind that pure transient properties don't. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that, as it's not truly an aside on this issue, but something that anyone out there listening, can consider, and that is one of the issues in terms of long-term stays is state and municipality rules and regulations on long-term stays. Because at what point do you now become like a trailer park, or do you become housing and you fall under all the rules that come with that you're now like a landlord and not a park owner? It's like, and every state's a little bit different. I don't know all these. I'm just saying that it's something that people really need to take a long, hard look at, and figure out. Like, if you're a park and you're offering long-term stays, really make sure at what point does that person become a resident, and now all of a sudden could be in a very different situation with that person. So
yeah, you got to keep track of all that stuff.
It's changing. It's changing constantly
in every jurisdiction.
Yeah,
and it's different.
Yeah.
Don't ask AI. Yeah, ask AI as a starting point, but
right, that's what you need to do, is like go out there and do your due diligence before you go anywhere. And if you're a park owner, make sure you do it. Go to your town office or whatever and figure this out, because it's going to continue to grow and it's going to be a continued issue.
The AI's contrarian take. The conventional wisdom says invest in amenities and experiences. The data says the real play in 2026 is operational sophistication and pricing intelligence. The parks that will outperform aren't necessarily the ones with the nicest pool. They're the ones using dynamic pricing, capturing competitive intelligence, and automating labor-intensive tasks. The amenities arms race has diminishing returns. The operations gap is where alpha lives. What specific segments are you thinking about for camp vantage position? Just ask.
I think if you're a park owner or manager, that's something you should really think of a lot about. I like the idea of, the arms race has diminishing returns, because it does. At a certain point, it doesn't matter. It's like put in the most meaningful ones, and then focus on your hospitality from there. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses on adding more and more. Again, look at what other people are doing. If someone else is, let them kind of go all out on all those amenities, and then you focus on, your customers and providing good hospitality, and you can charge less per night, and you're going to win in the long run. They're going to price themselves out of it. Infrastructure, maintenance, operations will eventually come home to roost with a lot of that stuff. So that's a really good point. Anyway, this is what I was trying to say.
All right, what else we got here? I have Instagram CEO I wanted to talk about real quick. This is an interesting story to me that we read. Adam Mosseri, Instagram's CEO or head, posted a 20-slide year-end memo on December 31st, 2025 that's getting a lot of attention. Here's the gist. The core message is the polished, perfect aesthetic that helped Instagram become popular is dead. AI can now generate flawless imagery in seconds. So a perfectly lit photo no longer proves that something happened. It now sparks suspicion. The shift in what matters. As AI output becomes ubiquitous, too perfect content, heavily edited or algorithmically smoothed images may lose its appeal. Instead, greater attention will shift towards content that looks raw, real, and imperfect. Backlighting, shaky hands, small flaws, and human traces that make an image feel less manufactured. Imperfection is proof. Savvy creators are going to lean to explicitly unproduced and unflattering images of themselves. Look at us. We're super unflattering. Yeah.
I'm a mess.
We already got it done. In a world where everything can be perfected, imperfection becomes a signal. Rawness isn't just aesthetic preference anymore. It's proof. The detection problem. Mosseri admits that while Instagram does identify AI content, all social platforms will, quote, get worse at it over time as AI gets better. His proposed solution is to flip the approach, fingerprinting real media, not just chasing fake, essentially verifying authenticity at the source rather than trying to catch every synthetic image. And I agree with this. I think there's a very clear future where we take this podcast and we authenticate it on the blockchain to say that it's real, right? That I do that with all my other content on Fireside Chats too and things like that. User behavior is already shifting. Most users under 25 no longer care about posting to their public grid. Instead, they're sharing unflattering candids in private group chats or disappearing stories, a quiet rebellion against algorithm chasing perfection. There's an interesting irony here for your content and consulting work. This is what it says. If I said it's memory, I don't know if it's relevant. The platform that built its empire on filters and polished aesthetics is now declaring that era over because AI won the polish game. So this is again, we've been talking about this for a while, right? We've shown AI image generators on here. We've talked about how AI is creating flawless content. We've talked about how, yes, you think you can tell already right now what AI content is, and it isn't. I guarantee you, all of you have both watched a video or at least seen a photo, and will in the next 3 months to 6 months watched a video that you have absolutely no clue that is AI. And it is the worst that it will ever be. Like within let's call it 18 to 24 months, there will be absolutely no way, other than if we invent some kind of blockchain system, there will be absolutely no way to tell whether anything you watch, including like a long form 2-hour movie, is real. Now, like, that doesn't mean that everything will be fake. It doesn't mean AI will be everywhere, right? But within 18 to 24 months, no one on this planet, including me, will be able to tell without blockchain authenticity. And that's a little bit scary.
It is. And
because our whole society for like hundreds of years or 100 years plus has been based on video as the source of truth.
Correct. And the one thing I would put out there for anyone who's in the hospitality industry is be very careful of what you put out with using AI, because what you want, and I liked what you were saying earlier about the whole like intentionally flawed stuff, is that, you know, for example,
I don't like, to be clear, that's why we do live. That's why I do live videos.
Right. It's like, because that's what you need. You don't want people showing up at your campground and have this vision of it that isn't real, because now you've put yourself in a bad situation because people don't like that.
Yeah. It's
so yeah,
an interesting world. Like, I don't know how the only way to solve this is through blockchain. The only way to solve this is to say, this is a legitimate image of Brian and Scott. We recorded this on this date at this time in this place. You in Maine, me in Calgary. This is Outwired. We sign and verify that this is legit and real.
Yep.
That's it. That's the only way. But then again, like, that system, if you think that's going to be turned on overnight, no. You're going to go through a period of probably 3 to 5 years where you have no trust in anything that you, and I know everybody's response to this is, I already don't trust anything online. Everybody lies online. It's a whole different ballgame when every fucking video is fake or could be fake. Like, it's an entirely different ballgame because most people think that they can tell right now, and you can't. You can tell if it's shitty slop right now, right? But it was interesting. I was watching a podcast. I cited this. I can't remember who said this. Maybe it was Dave Shapiro in one of his podcasts, where he cited a data point, and I haven't researched it, but I'm assuming it's true. Like, he does his research pretty well. 50% of the people who use ChatGPT still believe that it pulls its answers from a database somewhere.
Mm.
So, like, the amount of people who understand or have any kind of concept or frame of reference for what AI actually is, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, the difference between this, right? Like they believe that the answer to their question is sitting in a database and it just retrieves it and gives it to them.
Yeah, that
like that's 50% of people who use ChatGPT. So the amount of ability for people to say, like, I understand AI images and AI video and AI audio and AI, like, there's just no frame of reference for these people.
Right. Dylan has a question. How do you keep AI out of the blockchain?
How do you what?
Keep AI out of the blockchain.
I mean, I don't think you need to keep AI out of the blockchain. The idea is that blockchain if you understand the fundamental basics of blockchain, which is far too confusing for us to talk about on the show today, and maybe we should do a show on blockchain at some point. But blockchain is simply like, think of it like a Google Sheet. But every time, instead of you updating a Google Sheet on your computer and it being as a copy right there on your computer, you update a row in Google Sheet and instantly that row is the same across a billion different Google Sheets all over the world, and it's locked and can never be changed again. It's a permanent, irrefutable record of what happened in a specific time or place or activity or event or whatever that can never be changed again once it's submitted, and it's synced to like billions of different computers. So even if somebody tried to hack it and change it, they would only be able to change it on 1 or 100 or 1,000 computers, but not everywhere. So it would instantly be able to be seen as fraud or false. So that's the benefit of, like, I don't know that the question was a good question, I think, but it's not the right frame of reference for it. It's the only way for Brian to prove Brian is to have a blockchain signature that can't be edited by anybody else that is Brian, right? And so that infrastructure needs to be invented, and like some people have started down this way. Sam Altman owns a company called WorldCoin that does something similar, but they're embroiled in a bunch of legal issues and they scan your irises and all that kind of stuff. And but there's, I don't know how you handle this, but you're going to have to go through a period of probably like a hard 3 to 5 years. And by that time, like, who knows what society looks like, right? Like, do we want to go back then is my point. Like, I'm not talking about bad or good, but do we want to go back to a world where, like, now I'm just going to check all the content credentials of every video, or at that point, will it be rewired so much that we just won't care?
Right.
I don't know. But you've got to pay attention to this from a campground perspective, because you've got to understand that, like, as soon as that trust goes out the door with consumers, it won't come back. Which means that every video and every photo and everything that you put on social media about your campground is going to be questioned. Not because it will be fake, but because it could be fake. So it's going to be an interesting world. That's all I got to say. I don't know what's going to go on. So what else we got, Scott? What else are we going to talk about? Trends, insights, AI, forecasts for 2026. Like, I have my own, but I'm going to leave that alone until the Outwired report comes out.
I think we've hit these. I think we've hit them pretty good for today. I'm feeling good about it. I feel like 2026 is going to be a big transitional year, though. I really do.
I mean, well, for those of you, finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Because I was going to say that, one of the things that we'll have to just keep an eye out for is, to kind of look at things that aren't linear, to look at things that are, like in the chaos, what emerges that is going to signal something different. And, hopefully that's something good. But the one thing, and I think I mentioned this to you the other day, Brian, and maybe it was just something I wrote, but the idea of controlling the narrative. The industry overall, in my opinion, does not do a very good job of controlling the narrative. They always put out a message that is typically a little too polished and a little too positive instead of it being real. And people want real, and they want they want to know the truth. And
we're going to give it to them. They may not want to know it. Stay tuned in 1 month when that opinion flips to the other side and Scott is wrong. But for now, he's right.
Because the idea there is within that, even a doomsday scenario, it's like within there's opportunity if you look.
Yeah, you're right.
If you look for ways to disrupt it. And that's what people have to do, because it's, what's that old cliche? It's like, you can't solve problems with the same thinking that got you here. It's like, and that, that's where the industry needs to break through. I'd say the RV industry has more work than the rest of outdoor hospitality, but we all have work to do, because a lot of people have just built parks and put things out there, and they just assume that people are just going to continue to show up, and they aren't. So again, that to me is kind of where, when I look at this year, when I'm looking for what happens, I'm looking for, the thought leaders in the category to take the narrative and run with it and say, here's some things that could happen, but here's what you might want to consider, and let's put our heads together and get some good creative thinking going on.
Who are the thought leaders in this industry that you want to hear from?
Ask AI, they'll tell you.
We want to know you.
Jessica wants to know what you want, Scott. That's what she just said. Yeah, it's gonna be I don't know, it's gonna be interesting, but you're right. And no matter what you hear come out from an association or an organization or a company or from us at Outwired that AI has a hand in or doesn't, or what I say or what Scott says, no matter what that is, good, bad, or somewhere in the middle, there is always, as Scott said, going to be an opportunity for you to take advantage of something and do it better than you are today. That doesn't mean that you're bad today, but there's always some way, somehow that you, as a campground owner, me as a business owner, Scott as a business owner, can do a thing better than they did yesterday. And understanding and digesting the data and hearing how it could go, whether that's likely, unlikely, whatever you want to discern from the data that you're presented with, right? Gives you opportunity to adjust and deflect and take advantage of and be in a better position than, or whatever else, right? And I think that's important to always remember, that there is going to be opportunity out there. It just may not be the same thing you've always been used to. Like I have a client who I obviously won't name, but who emailed me and said, hey, like, I love these new Google Ads reports you're doing, but I'm looking to Insider Perks for strategy about how we improve the numbers on the Google Ads. And that's great. They should be looking for that for us, right? But the problem is the nugget in there is like, well, maybe Google Ads isn't the answer anymore. You can't force Google Ads down somebody's throat who isn't interested in camping in the area, right? Not that this park is doing bad or anything like that, right? But there's a finite cap on what Google Ads can return. And there's a big expectation among park owners and small business owners and everybody else too, right? But we'll just turn on Google Ads. Like if we don't have business, let's just do more of Google Ads. Let's just do more marketing. Let's just do more. But if the customers aren't there, if the customers don't have the money, if they only have an interest in camping but aren't actually camping because they don't have money or don't have time or it's uncertain or whatever the reason is, like you can do different things. Like on the show for Fireside Chats earlier, where the lady created the critter, whatever, creepy critter holiday weekend or whatever. Yep. You can think outside the box. You can do things. You can install better patio sites or shaded sites or paw pen sites or luxury sites like KOA is doing, or different things that attract different niches based on where you are and what your demographic is and who is there and who isn't. So there are ways that you can take that and survive, but you can't just sit here and think of the same old stuff again and say, I'm just going to do Google Ads, or I'm just going to post more on social media, or it's not the answer anymore. It's not. And it's hanging on by a thread right now, but that thread is about to get sliced through in 2026. And if you thought 2025 moved fast and was an engine for change, fuck, you have no idea what's coming in 2026. It is going to be crazy how fast the world is about to move. Like I can't even put it into words. Like you will feel like you're living in the future in 2026. That's how fast this is going to move. So,
by the way, just as an aside, I loved what the woman said about her like creepy creatures thing, and like how they're always booked and how it's the most popular thing they do, because we've talked about that kind of stuff on this show so many times. Like pick an event, do something, people will show up, and there it was proof. The proof right there. It's like they do this event and it's so popular. It's like, yeah, again, do some creative thinking, think outside the box a little bit, and do something. Just do something.
All right, let's wrap this up a little bit early today, because I've got a ton of work to do coming off the holidays. I've told you some of what I'm doing, Scott. We got some really interesting stuff that's going to come out. I've given a preview to somebody, a couple people already, who are really excited and interested in this. We're going to release a really interesting competitive analysis intelligence project. where you can actually go out and, with the help of AI and the tool that I've built, research all your competitors and get a 60-page, like, equivalent of like what a consultant would charge you $10,000-$15,000 and take about 3 months to put together, in about 18 minutes, on all your competitors and action items and all kinds. And we'll go into more detail about that later. But that's what I'm really excited about. So I got some work to do on that I'm going to get back to. We'll end the show a little bit early. But before we do, I asked Grok, who's my new favorite friend to roast people on, to roast Scott Bard. Are you interested in being roasted?
Do it.
All right, then then we can ask it for me if you want.
Just don't ask Grok to do a picture of me without my clothes on, okay? So
I heard that. Yeah, I have no interest in testing that, but I heard that
no one does. Believe me, no one does.
Well, I meant generally for any human being on the planet, but yes, you too. All right, here we go. So the only prompt I gave was roast Scott Barr from Cairn Consulting. Okay. And this is what it said. Scott Barr, the undisputed king of campground spreadsheets, and the guy who's turned people like tents with Wi-Fi into a decades-long empire. Hiding out in Bryant Pond, Maine, a town so deep in the woods that even the mosquitoes need GPS. You're out there crunching KOA's annual camping reports like it's your personal religion. Over 30 years of market research, from casinos to fly fishing to glamping feasibility studies. Congrats, man. You've mastered the art of making outdoor hospitality sound like a Fortune 500 boardroom instead of just admitting folks want to roast marshmallows without getting eaten alive. Naming your firm Cairn Consulting? Bold choice. Those little rock stacks are supposed to guide lost hikers, but let's be real. Half the time they just confuse everyone and get kicked over by bears. Fitting for a consultant telling RV park owners how to stack amenities while you're probably surveying data from a cabin that hasn't seen a real campfire since dial-up internet. You're the go-to guru for why glampers spend 45% more in local towns. Spoiler, it's the overpriced s'mores kits. And you've got podcasts, panels, and reports dropping hotter than a forgotten hot dog on the grill. But deep down, Scott, we all know the truth. You're just jealous of the actual campers out there living it, while you're buried in pie charts predicting the next big trend. Keep illuminating the market from your remote Maine fortress, champ. One wrong forecast on mosquito season and your whole data cairn comes tumbling down.
Wow, that was accurate.
Like that was interesting. That was regular Grok. There's actually a mean Grok that I don't have on the app. But should we have it roast me too?
So
roast Brian Searle from Insider Perks. Super mean style, like Grok would. All right, give it a second. All right, here we go. Brian Searle, the self-anointed pioneer in AI-driven automation and marketing for campgrounds, lording over insider perks from your icy throne in Calgary, like some digital nomad who fled Cleveland because even the Browns fans were too hardcore for you. Bro, you started this empire in 2009 as a video blog, basically a glorified vlog of you pretending to rough it, then pivoted to charging campgrounds $50 a month to post Facebook updates because some poor sap was paying a kid $10 a week to botch it. Genius hustle, or just admitting you're the overpriced middleman in an industry full of people who still use flip phones. Fast forward and now you're shoving AI down everyone's throat like it's the new propane. AI phone agents that book sites. Congrats on automating away actual human hospitality. AI-generated Christmas albums. Nothing says merry vibes like soulless robot carols about being fully booked for Christmas. Bet that slaps harder than a frozen RV hose. Blockchain bookings, robotics-powered operations. Dude, these are campgrounds, not Cyberdyne systems. Half your clients are still figuring out how to empty black tanks without drama, and you're out here promising digital workers and seamless data loops like your Elon Musk's forgotten cousin who settled for glamping instead of Mars. You host podcasts like MC Fireside Chats, co-host Outwired, drop press releases every week about being the first at something AI-related. Newsflash, Brian, in 2026, claiming first AI whatever for campgrounds is like bragging you invented the s'more. It's low-hanging fruit in a niche so tiny, your X account has 200 followers while your company one scrapes 8,000K. Let's talk about that bio. Karma believer, grateful for everything, adorable, probably manifesting more EIN Presswire hits, while your Yorkshire Terrier Riley judges you from the home office for never actually camping without Wi-Fi. Keep flooding the outdoor hospitality world with your practical AI gospel from the safety of Calgary winters, champ. One solid solar flare wipes out the grid, and your entire empire of chatbots and blockchain loyalty programs crashes harder than a newbie backing a 40-foot fifth wheel into a tree. Then we'll see who's fully booked for therapy. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a little long-winded in the beginning, but that's pretty good. All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Outwired. Do you have any final thoughts, Scott?
No, other than, you know what? I'm excited to do a lot of new stuff this year. You know, we have a lot of new stuff going on. I'm excited about it. I really am.
So much.
But I'm really hoping, is our industry can really, turn around, and hopefully you and I can help lead that dialogue. Because, like I said before, it's like controlling the narrative, leading with the narrative are going to be really, really important in the next few months.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Outwired. I am Brian Cyril. This is Scott Barr. See you next week. Peace.
Bye.